Welcome. I'm Pamela Rickia from livingjoyfully.ca, and today I'm here with Fiona Munday. Hi, Fiona.
Hello.
Hello. Now, even though your son isn't quite school age yet, we've been connected online for a while now, right? As you've been diving into deschooling. I'm really excited to learn more about your experience. So to get us started, can you share with us a bit about you and your family and what everybody's interested in right now?
So there's myself, my husband and Olli, who is our son, 4.5 years old. We live in New Zealand, in Auckland, and so Matt and I have been together 12 years, married for 6. We met through our shared passion of motorcycling. And we were friends first, so we had a good foundation. And so we live with Matt's parents, kind of like an apartment joined to their house. And we're currently building a little place at my mum's house. And that's taking up a lot of our thought process. Well, it was until COVID-19.
Yeah.
So we're just almost week 2 of our 4-week lockdown right now. So that's kind of flipped everything up on its head, but we're all healthy at this point, so can't complain. So Matt, I don't even know what to say. He is, but not currently, because the world has stopped. He is a sales and account manager for a motorcycling distribution company. Really good family-based company that he loves working for. He's really good at his job. He's a salesman through and through, but he also is just amazing with his customer service. So, and it's based in his hobby. So,
that's fun.
And at the moment, he is really interested. His new passion, because motorcycling kind of takes a back seat for a while when you have a small child. Well, it has for us anyway.
Yeah.
So his new passion is fishing. Everything is about fishing. So that has really taken over. Just tonight, he was sitting on the couch watching fishing videos, which is the kind of the status quo usually. And he also, we've got a puppy who's been with us about 7 months now. So he's taken charge of dog training, which has been quite cool. He's really loved that. So he's done a really good job with her. She was a bit crazy at the beginning, but she's settled down now.
Sweet.
And me, I mostly stay at home. I work 1 day a week at the same place Matt works, which is pretty cool. So that's kind of me partaking in my hobby as well. But the other days I'm at home with Olli, which I love. And my passion in general is actually unschooling, like researching it, listening to podcasts like your own, other people's podcasts, reading all the books. That really has been my passion project since Olli's was about 6 months old. But my newest one I've kind of got into is rock painting, painting little rocks that you then hide on tracks and when you go walking. We were out on a walk and we found one, and it just was, I'd never heard of it before. And it was just so neat to find this painted little rock and a message on the back to post it up to Facebook. And so it's a bit of a creative outlet. And it's kind of, you're painting a rock, so it's not really high stakes creativeness, because I'm such a perfectionist that it halts me in my tracks to doing things. So I haven't had that with painting rocks because they're just rocks, but it's so much fun. Olli kind of gets into it. He doesn't really like me hiding them because he just wants to keep them all. We've kind of negotiated around that. So that's me. And Olli, he's 4.5. He's never been to kindy or anything. And not really because of unschooling, I've always wanted to just be with him, spend time with him, which I don't know, it seems normal to me. It seems like but it's kind of, I get questions a lot at the playgrounds or about like, why isn't he in kindy or playgroup or things like that. But yeah, so he's never gone. He did go on the one day I work, he went to like a playgroup kind of situation with his grandparents because they kind of organised it. So there was a little bit of playgroup thing in there, which he loved. So he is into cars, trucks, vehicles, everything that goes.
Everything that goes.
Everything. Transformers is his big thing, and that's a theme that I've noticed. Matt and I picked it up through all of his interests. There's a theme of transforming through there. It doesn't have to be Transformers, the toys. It could be a vehicle that transforms, or like a duck boat. It's a bus on land, and then it goes into the sea, and it's a duck bus or duck boat. Yeah, so things like that, they transform into something else. He loves it. YouTube, he loves YouTube, and he finds all sorts of interesting things on there. I didn't even know YouTube was so broad with all the things that are on there. Yeah. He got really into virtual reality, was probably his latest thing, and he made his own little virtual reality glasses with safety glasses, and he put a black sock in there so they were blacked out, and then he had two little train carriages for his controllers. So he did that, and then I had to do it, and he knew what to do just from watching YouTube, and he was telling me what to do. And the cool thing was we found a discount code for the local virtual reality gaming place that he could go to, that they could be any age. So we did that just before lockdown. We got in there, so that was good, and it was so awesome. But it's like that has ended it for him at the moment. After that, there's been no interest, but it's pretty sure it'll come back at some point. Role playing. He loves role playing, making me role play with him, which I quite enjoy. I find it hard to play trucks or things like that. But role playing I find easier. Yeah. Which I found harder at the beginning. So it's taken me a bit of practice, but trying to get in touch with the playing with like a kid.
Yeah, no, that is something that I think a lot of people find. I mean, I did find challenging too for the first while. And then I also found the ones that I was better at or more comfortable, the ways of playing that I was more comfortable with. Yeah. Yeah. How did you how did you get used to, maybe like sink into, be more relaxed with the role playing? Just practice?
Just constantly doing it. Yeah. I have heard you on podcasts and with your guests talking about how that you don't have to be good at everything but something like that. Or so I kind of listened to that, took the pressure off myself. And he loves a show on YouTube called The Axel Show, and Axel's dad plays with him just like a kid. And so actually watching his dad play helped me how to play, which sounds crazy that you forget how to play.
Look, an adult's doing that.
Yeah. So that helped me. He was enjoying it, and then I was watching it with him, and it helped me kind of learning how to play. Yeah.
I think that can be such a helpful step while you're deschooling, right? For me, that's all part of working on the age aspect. The kids do this and the adults do that. The connecting on a human level, I think that is an aspect that really helps, because we realize that, we can play, we can have fun, we can not judge ourselves as to what we maybe look like, or that we have to do this perfectly, like all that kind of, like, even just relaxing into play with your child really helps so much with so many things, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's crazy that because at the playground sometimes I can play completely without embarrassment, and then other times I'll feel embarrassed, and I don't know why, but it's getting easier. So it definitely is practicing how to play. But I'm glad, and it's all come directly through unschooling and trying to live that kind of joyful path with Olli, because he gets so much joy from it. If I spend the time with him and play, there's a definite effect that it has on both of us. Just his joy comes through, and then I have the joy of seeing him so happy and connected, and our relationship is better. Such a small thing when you're trying to verbalize it, but it's massive to him because that's what's important to him right now. I love
that. Yeah. Now, that's a great place for us to hear a little bit more about how you discovered unschooling. You discovered it when he was quite young then, right?
Yeah. So I think it was just before he was 6 months. It was when I was still feeding before solids, and that time of he's feeding.
Yeah.
He always had to sleep on me, so I felt like I was always stuck to the couch. And I don't know how I found a homeschooling article, but it was homeschooling, and I just loved it. And I followed that, and I trained to be a teacher, and I taught for 1 year in primary school, elementary school, I think, in Canada. When I read the homeschooling articles, I identified with it and just thought, that's awesome. I remember reading about unschoolers and just thinking, that's weird.
Yep, yeah.
That wouldn't be me. I need to do school at home. And I'd already started organising my future home classroom for Olli. So through the constant reading and the listening to podcasts, just delving down further and further, I identified more and more with unschooling. Until now, I can't remember when that happened, but I feel like I've been identifying as an unschooler for a long time now. So I don't know how fast it happened, but definitely not school at home. And I think a lot of the educational stuff I could understand pretty easily because of my training. And I think so when I was training to be a teacher, there was a lot of emphasis on in the classroom, you should provide each child the ability to follow their interests, and that's how they best learn, and to be self-motivated. But you can't actually do that in the classrooms really at all. And so that wasn't the reason why I stopped teaching. I was just going to burn out. But I kind of thought I'd failed at that part, I could only last a year. So when I came across homeschooling and then unschooling, I felt reinvigorated, and also the confidence that I had a teaching degree, because I'm very much a schooled mindset, which I'm slowly changing, whereas you have to be, you have to go through the school process, and you can't do anything unless you've got the degree or the diploma. So I don't think I ever would have touched homeschooling if I didn't have the teaching degree, because I just would have automatically cancelled it. I can't do that. So I'm glad for that. And then just through how I learn as an adult, how Matt learns as an adult, all my motorcycling passion, everything that I've learned about motorcycling is taught myself or asking others, getting taught, not through books. And it's passion driven, and it's something I know a lot about. I can talk freely about it. And it's just been a thread through my life since I was 19. So I could identify straight away with that part of my life. That's the thing. I can remember things about motorcycles that I can't remember about school in my last year of school.
Yeah.
Because it didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And Matt's the same. Matt had a hard time in school. So he's dyslexic. So he he always had to find different ways of working around the school system or the school classroom. So he's very adept now as an adult to self-teach and follow his passions like fishing, watching YouTube videos and trying out different, I don't even know what you call them, knots, ties, I don't know. I'm not into fishing. Whereas I was the straight A student, the teacher's pet, loved school, thought, I did so well at school that life is going to be easy. And I found it super hard coming out of school because it's not reality. So that's that school brain of, I wouldn't be able to homeschool if I wasn't trained in teaching, which is not relevant at all when you get down to it. But even the fact that I would have avoided this whole amazing life choice just for the fact of a school brain kind of scary.
Yeah. That is such an interesting observation, but it makes so much sense, right? Because that's where you were. That's where your thought process was at the beginning, right? So, you can totally see how that would be like a little tick box for you at first.
Yeah.
Homeschooling. Oh, look, I've got this, I have a young child, I have a teaching degree, but I can continue to look into this and pursue it. And yes, those unschoolers look crazy, but it is that whole process of, it is deschooling, right? As you, like you were saying, at first you were thinking about the classroom that you were going to set up at home, but then you started, observing more about the learning and thinking about your learning, your motorcycle passion, which is so cool. Like I remember so much of my deschooling time on the academic side was about thinking about my school career, right? And what I remember and, what I ever used, of all the things that I learned, what was actually applicable, et cetera. And then thinking about stuff on my own interests and passions and how much I remember of that and how much I enjoyed, it's just a new lens, right? To look back on our lives so far. And even watching your husband too, right? With this new passion or newer passion of fishing and seeing him enact, like it's happening right in front of you, right? When you're paying attention, when you get past the idea that it needs to look like academic subjects, right?
Yeah.
Learning is learning. And you can see it in your kids, you can see it in your partner, your spouse, and then you can start to see it in yourself. I find it easier, I certainly did at first, to see it in other people.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just me then.
It definitely helped too with Olli being so small. Everything he was doing developmentally was massive, and it was self-driven. So it was really easy because he was so small, and it was just to apply the principles that I was learning about of unschooling to be like, oh, yeah, okay, I can see this right here. Look, he's trying to crawl or trying to walk, and look at him go. I'm not doing anything. So I'm not explicitly teaching him how to walk. So that was, I think, helped with his age. That's kind of
I know, it's just like it brings back all the memories. You want to just sit there and
everything.
I know,
everything,
right?
From eating,
it expands, right?
And it's a weird idea to think that he can do all this stuff up from a baby to, now, and then at 5, suddenly he has to be taught how to do everything else in the world. It's once you open that box, it just, it's like, what? But it
is really, it's hard to close it again. But I mean, it is worth that time to think about. I mean, you do have to make that connection between, and that's something that conventionally we have. Like there's a special set of stuff that we need to go to school to learn, that we need to all of a sudden start learning in a completely different way. I mean, once you start asking those questions of yourself, you're like, oh, well, that makes no sense. But it's so ingrained in us, right? Don't ask those questions. It's so easy to just go with that flow, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, you've been learning so much about unschooling. You guys are living an unschooling lifestyle, right? Yeah. What benefits have you seen from starting your journey so early? Versus waiting until he was school age and then thinking about it.
Yeah, probably the time that I've been able to spend, like when he's small and sleeping so much, that's what I do.
Yeah.
Just reading and listening to you, Pam, and listening to so many other podcasts, and talking to Matt about it, and also just thinking about it, how it applies to our life, and so the time would be a big thing, and then also because of having that time when Olli was so young, and seeing him do this developmental stages, and applying the unschooling philosophy to that, being able to develop the trust in the process.
Yeah.
And without the educational pressure. So it was more like we've been unschooling all the other things, like all the life things, rather than the academic side, which probably is reverse when you have older kids coming from school. You're more, I don't know, I'd assume you'd be more focused on the academics side. Mm-hmm. But because he's been so small, we've kind of been able to iron out all the bits, all the other stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, as you said, you had kind of your teaching had helped you with a bit with the academic side, right?
Yeah.
Just because, you had already been introduced to the concept of learning works really well when you're following your interests. And then you had the experience of not being able to really do that in a classroom size group of kids, right? I mean, let alone bringing their interests in. It's getting to know each of them well enough to know what their interests are, right?
Yeah.
But go ahead.
And I had such an amazing class of kids, and I had a small class of kids too, and they were just amazing. But there's just not enough time there's a lot of paperwork, but even without the paperwork, just because of the number of children and all the different things that happen throughout the day, it's impossible in the current state. Yeah. So the idea is cool in a school system, but it doesn't work. So being able to do that in a home based is the way to go, I think.
Well, yeah, and your point about how in your own family you were able to focus on more the life side of it, right? Yeah. Because he was so young, so you were focused on supporting that. And like you said, those are huge growth moments, right? Where you see them learning so much that's more obvious than as they get older, right? So crawling and walking and talking and eating and like all those life skills and seeing that in action. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's a really great reason for starting nice and early. I guess, because I've talked before, it really depends on the person. If you find it overwhelming, to focus more on the parenting aspect than worrying about the unschooling. But if you're in a place where you can focus on the unschooling and looking at life through that lens, right? It is a fantastic opportunity to move through a lot of the deschooling process before your child hits school age, right?
Yeah, well, I think it helped me get through the early years. And the ease of our days now, like it hasn't been easy, but there's a definite ease because we're living an unschooling philosophy in our life. Our days are unschooling based, so there's an ease which I know that it wouldn't have been there before because I've done so much work on myself. I'm quite a controlling person, I think, trying to always control in a nice way, but still controlling. Yeah. And I would have caused serious issues because Olli is headstrong, like he's just like me, and he knows what he wants. And now I can see that as awesome, but we probably would have butted heads beforehand, and I just would have been wanting to change him and control him to make him different and easier, whereas now I'm much more accepting of it.
Yeah, well, that leads
not accepting of just
understanding.
That's a better word.
Yeah. Which leads nicely into our next question, I'd love to hear more about what you found to be one of the more challenging aspects of deschooling so far, and a little bit about your experience working through that.
Me.
Yeah.
It's deschooling me. Definitely. Yeah. I remember reading when I first started looking at unschooling and thinking the deschooling word, and I would read it and be like, oh, well, that's not going to be applicable to us. Ollie's never going to go to school.
Yeah.
But no, I needed big time on deschooling. And yeah, a lot of it is me about becoming less controlling and just changing my mindset a lot and being aware of my mindset even to begin with before trying to change it. Because I always thought my way was the right way. And funnily enough, I could apply the unschooling philosophy to Olli easily. That was fine, but applying it to Matt and myself was almost like, well, we're adults, we should know what to do already, and there was no grace for mistakes or trying. So like Matt's fishing hobby, I just thought was a waste of time. It kind of annoyed me. It was taking time away from family, and oh my goodness, we've got dishes to do and take out the rubbish, and just wanting to talk about fishing. So my dad passed away 3 years ago, and about a year after that, I needed to do some grief counselling, and Matt helped me with that. He was a part of that, and it was amazing how the counselling sessions kind of married up with unschooling. Mm-hmm. And I had a big aha moment with something that the counsellor said, and I realised that I wasn't applying what I believed to be so true for Olli with unschooling to Matt or myself. And I was holding us to the old conventional way of treating each other, so that was a big aha moment. And so that's been the biggest kind of hurdle about deschooling, is to realise it's not all about Olli, it's about all of us, including Matt, my poor husband.
I think
He's been so patient.
So patient. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
But that is such a huge piece. And we had mentioned that earlier on, that unschooling as a lifestyle, but as human beings, right? Where age kind of melts away. But it's so true. When you're still, you still have that children, adult perspective, right? It's so easy to stay in that spot because, it's everywhere around us conventionally, right? And they are younger. They do have less experience. They are learning all sorts of things that we already know. But it's, as we talked about on the podcast so much about peeling back all the layers, and you mentioned it was like all my work. That was one of the most challenging things. And the discovery that each time something bubbles up for us, right? In the end, we almost always discover it's our work to do, don't we?
Yeah. Damn it.
I know, right? It's in how we view, how the lens through which we're seeing things, and peeling back those layers makes our view more clear, doesn't it? Or more fundamental. I loved that insight that, I can support Matt and his fishing, and not even support, but give him space and joy and enjoy his joy of that interest, right?
And it's led to such beautiful things. So through that fishing, I chose the other day a battlefish documentary for us all to watch, because we didn't know what to watch, and we quite like the documentaries on Netflix. It's not a documentary, it's a reality show. So we chose that, and then from that, Olli wanted to go out and pretend fish on the boat. So Matt took him out, and Matt tied a piece of string to the end of Olli's little fishing rod, and he showed him how to cast a couple of times, and then we all went out, and Matt and I were with the fish, and Olli was casting, and we'd catch it. He'd reel us in. But after like 5 times of casting, Olli can cast better than I can. And he reels it in properly, and he's got it in the right spot and pulling up.
Wow.
And that's following the joy of Matt's passion, because I've stepped back and stopped being like all negative Nelly about it. And then that's led to just awesome fun and joy with Olli. Whereas beforehand, that wouldn't have happened because of me, the kind of stuff I was doing.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's part of the journey too, is also being gentle with ourselves.
Yeah.
Like not beating ourselves up when we didn't know differently. Like we were still doing the best that we could do and that we thought we could do in that moment, right?
Yeah.
But that's the wonderful thing about learning, and this whole thing of starting at, as early as you discover it and are comfortable diving into it. Like you said, that was another great point, that now when he was really young, you had lots of more time to be reading or thinking off in your own little world, while he was napping and all that kind of stuff, to really do a lot of that internal processing, right?
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. And I love, you just snuck that in there, but that would have been another like aha moment maybe for somebody. You were saying how quickly he picked up the fishing style,
through
casting,
play,
holding it the right way, and like learning. It's almost like a sponge, and it works that way for adults too. But when you're into something that's interesting to you, it doesn't have to even be a big, long, lifelong passion. But when you're in that moment, right, and something's interesting in that moment, you can just absorb so much, can't you?
Oh, definitely, because Matt's watched fishing stuff in front of Olli for ages and talked about fishing and trying to get him. Matt's tried to get him to go fishing, and he's not really interested. So it was just that little snippet of a program that, it all kind of came together. And we weren't trying to get it to come together. It just came together, and it was so much fun for all of us.
And so that's another big piece, and I imagine you've seen that, is the learning to follow those moments.
Yeah.
Not on our timetable, but it's on the learner's timetable. So, you know what I mean? So that when he was expressing that interest, just kind of going with it. I like to think about like following the flow of our interests, and just how our days and moments are unfolding. I mean, it doesn't always work. There are things that, need to be done, or we've got schedules to keep, appointments here and there. But I was amazed at how helpful it was to have lots of open time and space so that we could just follow things as they came up, because it's just so much, like Olli had so much fun in that moment, and you guys had so much fun in that moment, right?
Yeah.
So letting that happen, it's important to have that space where you can just see what happens.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's something I'm still probably working hard on to do. It's getting easier. Like, it's just, so that's part of the deschooling is just, once you're aware of something and can feel like it fits, and that's a thing I'm trying to work on. I'm very much I'm not so spontaneous. I've never been spontaneous, and a lot of these things are kind of spontaneous. So letting go of but I've planned to do this, but it's getting better.
Oh yeah, no, and I mean that was a huge piece for me. I mean, and you know what? It's not like you get these things and then all of a sudden it's easy. Like you were saying, it's not easy.
No.
Because I mean, I find I process my way through that. Even now, if I'm doing something and somebody comes up and says, "Hey, you want to go for a walk? Like, let's go for a walk in the forest." I still need to do that little transition. And once in a while, it's like, no, I need to get this done because of this. But I also have that, that reminder in the back of my mind now, knowing that that's an opportunity for some great connection, and who knows what will bubble up. So to do that little transition when I can out of it is always so helpful. Like, I just learned from experience, and you'll get that too. Because this is a great example, Olli, and that fishing. It's like, look what can happen when we follow the flow. So I get to a point where, I'm excited to be able to participate in those open times. And then again, it doesn't matter whether it's my husband or my dad or my child who's saying it. It's like, that's like an open space for some connection and fun, and who knows what'll happen. I'm curious to see how it unfolds, right? But I still need that like minute to remember that and do that little shift and say, sure, I'll be there in a couple minutes, or whatever. So all that to say is that we're real human beings living these moments. It's not like all of a sudden, that's another, I was going to say it's perfect and we're perfect. And it's like, oh yes, let's do this. Like some kind of magical unschooling movie in your mind.
Yes, I'm now an unschooler.
Yeah. So now I can stamp anything and flow here and do all. And I think when we first start and learn about it, we can put that expectation on ourselves, and we can beat ourselves up when it's hard or when we don't manage to do it. You know what I mean? But that's life, that's living, that's being human.
Yeah.
And every moment is its own moment. Right? So to be able to move past that judgment of ourselves. Right? Yeah, it's it's really important and valuable, and to give ourselves that grace. You had mentioned grace before, that grace, that ease, but it's just so important for ourselves as much as our children. But because most of the work ends up being ours anyway, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, because Olli can do this perfectly fine. He can drop something without a moment's notice and change because he wants to do it. It's all with the adults. Matt and I, Matt's pretty good at dropping something and following the flow. So it's it's just
that was one of the things I learned too. For me, whenever I was feeling stuck or confused or or whatever my challenge was in the moment, is I would learn to look to the kids first. And, and I would see how they handled things, like that whole perfectionist thing, right?
Yeah.
A lot of me working through that for myself was looking at my kids and seeing that, when something went wrong for them, they would just kind of try again, or they would, it wouldn't be the end of the world, like to make a mistake or to get something wrong. They would take that information and try again or move through it, or, and that was just so fascinating to me. Like, I'd be like, I would love to be a person that didn't want to run and hide when I made a mistake.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So looking to my kids and seeing how they did things and trying that on for size was always so helpful for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd be curious to know, what has surprised you most about your journey so far?
How it changes everything. Absolutely everything.
Yeah.
In a good way. Way. When I first started reading about it, I was reading mainly about the academic side and picturing ahead times for when Olli was 5. That's when it would kind of the effects would start to be seen. But it just changes everything that we do from the time we get up. Well, from going to sleep together, from the time we get up throughout our day, everything.
I know, no, seriously, everything.
Everything. From the way our kitchen's laid out, so Olli can access his food, any type of food he wants, to just everything, the way the house is laid out for him to access stuff. Bed, everything, the bedtimes, the clothing, and in our minds, and Matt and I often talk about, the box is opened. Why do we do this thing? Well, why do we do it like that? We'll often question it, and Matt's become quite questioning too, which is quite cool. I was the questioner before him because I was doing all the research and kind of feeding bits to him.
Yeah.
But now that's opened in his mind, so now he questions things too, questions back. So, just why we do certain things in certain ways, why we think that Olli needs to do. I can't think of an example. Even to the point of, so it's kind of I'm still kind of thinking through it, but how in conventional parenting, it's parents and child are separate, and there's a thought that you should have each other's back as parents, and if one person, says a rule, then the other parent needs to back them up, and if you disagree with them, you do it behind closed doors. Mm-hmm. And that's been my latest kind of thought of, well, why? Because we're a team, like we call ourselves Team Mundo. We're a team that pivots. That Team Mundo helps to pivot my thinking. Yeah. When I'm becoming a bit too parental, pivots me too. We're a team. We're all equal partners in this team. So why would we not discuss nicely in front of each other if we disagree? We can do it nicely as well as we can, and Olli can have input, and he has amazing input because he, from a young age, he has been an equal team member with us. And he has amazing insight into how to solve problems, into helping Matt and I discuss things. So even and it feels just lovely that way, that we're a team that way, and it's not Matt and I against Olli.
I think when you can get to that point, I think what dissipates is the power aspect of it, right? So it doesn't become either, adults versus children, if it's something you guys are trying to work out with Olli, or adults pitted against each other, like I'm right, you're wrong. When that power disappears or melts away, it becomes more about whatever the thing is, right? Whether it's, one wants to do this and one doesn't want to do this, that's a simplistic one. But like even between the adults, then it can become conversation, right? It can be less heated. It doesn't need to be argumentative, because argumentative, I think, comes out a lot when it's kind of a power-based thing, when one needs to exert the power to get the other one to agree with them. But if it's a conversation where the team is the focus, right, then it becomes about the thing and what everybody thinks and feels about the thing, and then finding a way through it that everybody's reasonably comfortable with, right? Our thought can be more about the conversation. I think that's another layer peeled away, isn't it? That when that power layer kind of dissolves out. And I loved your point about how kids are capable of adding insight and value to those conversations. Like, again, when you start and you have that parent-child dynamic, parent-child power dynamic, you don't think that less powerful being can add anything of value to the conversation, especially when it's not really about them. Like you were saying, when you and Matt are discussing things, you to do that away from him because he wouldn't have anything of value. But now you're discovering, as you guys are talking through it, when he's around, that he has such interesting insight to share, right?
Yeah. And I remember when I was a kid, I had such a, I don't know how to word it, but I felt like I knew things about the world so clearly when I was a kid. And I've kind of felt like I've lost that a bit becoming an adult. I don't know if it's your brain gets full of other stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I kind of remember that as from me being a child. So I have trust in Olli that he kind of has that as well. And he seems to. And such great ideas, problem solving that he comes up with. Yeah. And it's really cool to give him the opportunity to just share with us and he really is, he's my friend, he's Matt's friend. It's not we're trying to not do the parent-child thing. We're a team, we're equal. And it's having positive, the times when we can do it well, where we have a win-win for all of us, when we have these little discussions, it feels amazing. It doesn't always work. No, it doesn't always, but we're getting better at it again. The more we do it, the more I suppose being aware of it, the more we can start to, I don't know, being aware of it means we involve Olli more, invite his problem solving if he wants to. I mean, he's 4.5. Sometimes he just doesn't care. He blanks us out, so that's fine. But sometimes he does. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's perfect. When that is, when he's got something to share or when he is engaged in it, that's when somebody's not trying to force them to be involved. doesn't really add much value for anybody, right? But, and the other thing too, that you mentioned, sometimes it doesn't, work, as in we don't find a way through in that moment, but you're still even going through the process, right? You're still setting up that connection and that developing that trust, so that, if you're on some sort of timetable and you can't really find a way through within it, you got that trust to lean on, right? Like I found with my kids, if sometimes we just couldn't figure out something, and I just say, I really need you to do this. Because XYZ, and I know it doesn't make sense, but I need you to do this, and just explain my reason, and you have that trust and that respect, and they know that I'm not saying that to like convince them or trick them into doing something, because so many times we figured out a way through things, right? So no matter where it goes, it's still always valuable to have that conversation, and it just strengthens our relationships, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, having the trust, you have to follow through on it, saying what we've discovered. Yeah. And thankfully, we were kind of switched on to that since Ollie's been young, and he really does trust us. He will give me, if I need 15 minutes to finish putting on the meal, and then I'll play with him. I'll ask him, or say, look, today I had to do that 15 minutes, and then I'll come and play, and I have to go and play. And I do say to him often, Mummy forgets, come and remind Mummy if I've forgotten, because I do forget. And he does, and that's fine. It's part of our life, and he knows that. He's because we have the trust built up that I will go and play. And it's kind of a win-win. Like, I get to finish the dinner, and he knows that I'm going to come. So we're both winning out of that situation.
Yeah, no, that's just the beautiful outcome of having that trust. And yes, that trust develops when you follow through. Like that's a huge part of developing it in the first place, right? Is following through with whatever it is you say you're going to do. That's how they come to realize, that they can trust what you're saying, that you're not saying things to manipulate them or to get something from them, but that you mean what you say, right? It's not that they trust you because you're their parent, right? I mean, I think so often conventionally that's what we rely on for that relationship, but instead we're building trust with them through our actions, the combination of our words and our actions, that we actually follow through with what we say. We're not just saying something, I'll play with you in 15 minutes to put them off and hoping that they forget about it 15 minutes later. I mean, and I've done that piece too. And I still do that piece, and if I forget, like, if we're out somewhere and somebody says, oh, I'd really like to do that. I said, that sounds like a great idea, even to my husband. But, remind me later. I send myself a dozen emails a day, I think.
Yes,
I have a phone with me, and I'm like trying to remember all these things, right? So I've used that many times. It's like, but, and if I forget, just tell me, I won't feel bad that you're reminding me, you're not bugging me, none of that. It's like, because I said I wanted to do that. You're doing it for me. As well as for yourself, whatever it was. So that's it. Yeah. I love that. And that's it, right? We're finding those tools that work for us to live together and to do things together. We're discovering about ourselves. We're discovering about how we relate to other people. That's like the foundation of unschooling, just like who we really are as people and individuals, and how we can connect and engage with the other people in our family, right?
Yeah, and I think he's just picking up really amazing life skills, and it's not in a pressured way from us. Like, since probably he was 4, he started to use swear words. And I explained to him, so to me, swear words are words, they're words. But I said, if you use them outside of our house, people will probably think you're rude, and they might not like you as much. He's all about making friends, so they might not want to be friends with you if you use these words, because other people find them inappropriate. But you can use them at home if you want to. I mean, I use them at home, so I can't lay one rule for him and one rule for me. And he has never, I think maybe once he slipped up, and I've just said to him, remember, just at home. And he understands that, and he trusts that. So we've never had the issue of him swearing to get, if he's not getting his way, and I don't know.
Yeah.
He just gets it. And
you think of that the other way, like when we were growing up, right? The swearing was not in the house, but it was all out.
Yeah. And exactly. But it was from fear. Like, I can't get busted from my parent to swear.
Yeah.
And they're just words. Like, this is where it comes down to, it's everything.
Yeah.
And yet he's learned a life skill that already he's learning that you can be a certain way at home around people you trust, your team mundo, but there's ways that you act outside, and it's just through a normal life learning thing that, right. So even something so small as swearing, there's so much packed in there that with unschooling has helped me see it can be a completely different way than I would have done.
Yeah.
Trying to just control him by not swearing outside.
Even don't swear. Because it's not about, like, you're right. Look at the nuance that comes out when you don't just make it a rule. Right? Yeah. When you make it a rule, don't do it, then it's just about policing the rule. Right? Whereas now there's so much like conversation about the environment. Yeah. Right? You learn so much more, like the context of the place that you're in and the people that you're with, and how these actions or these words can be interpreted by other people. Like, there's just so much richness that comes to the conversation when you take that approach versus just nailing down a rule, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so important for adults. I talk differently with bosses than I do with coworkers or Matt to friends, even motorcyclists. We've got a whole different way of talking to my in-laws. It's real life. And why would, it just makes sense now because the box has been opened. Why would we do any different way with Olli?
Yeah. Oh, so many boxes, right?
So many boxes.
I would be curious to know, what is your favorite thing about the flow of your unschooling days right now? Maybe not literally, right? I know
not literally
right now on lockdown for a lot of us, right?
I suppose it can still apply, which is nice. So I've heard you talk a lot about joy, and I've had joy in my life. I know what joy is, but actually I've experienced what I would call real joy now, just lately, following Olli on his tangents and his passion, and so his transforming passion, which is the thread through seems to be the thread through everything. He found a video on YouTube of some guy loaded a video up of little Burger King toys, Happy Meal. No, I think it was Burger King, little toys, and they were transformed from robots into letters. And he had the whole alphabet. And the whole video is just him going through A and talking step by step. And I'm laughing now because it's just so amazing that Olli found this video of a transforming alphabet of this guy taking him through. Ollie's learning his alphabet and was completely into it. And he's never shown any interest in the alphabet song, like singing the alphabet. But this thing, because it was transforming, and I watched the whole video with him. It went on for quite a while.
Yeah.
I just got so much joy. Like I can feel it in my body now. It's like watching him just get a kick out of this guy and his alphabet transformers. Like I would never have picked that up. That I would have enjoyed that, but I did because he was so into it. And there seems to be more and more examples of that happening now. I think it's the layers peeling back, and now I understand what you mean about the joy, and so that's the cool thing that I'm discovering at the moment is there's this real joy, and real joy for me too. Like I'm getting real joy out of rock painting, and they're real basic. They're super basic things I'm painting, but I'm really enjoying them because I can't say the words. I can only just do it.
I know. I know exactly what you mean. And I remember that shift from so many years ago, which is, that's why my website is Living Joyfully.
Yeah.
Right? Because for me, that was the most profound shift to and still now trying to imagine what it was. Is it a layer of judgment that we're peeling away, that we can see the joy in the most mundane little things?
Because I totally would have judged that video beforehand. Like, who is this guy?
And look at all those toys.
This video is how long? So judgment definitely for me in that video.
Yeah.
But having no judgment,
Right. And judgment on ourselves with the painting. But it feels like we all of a sudden more clearly see everything. Right? For ourselves, like that painting, the rocks, the walk, the finding the rock, it's like all of a sudden we're allowing ourselves to more, I don't know if authentically is the right word, but engage in that moment, like just surrender and be in that moment, like a child, right? They're right in that moment and having fun in that moment. And because that judgment piece is a step out of the moment, right? Because we're thinking about the moment through the eyes of good, bad, right, wrong, right?
Yeah.
So being able to really sink and engage in the moment, we see so much of that joy, right?
Yeah.
And then even when things are going wrong, it's not like, oh, this is fun. Things are not going our way. But deeper, it's that trust too, that will move through those moments. And you gain that through experience, through having done it before. Even if you can't see where you're going to end up, you're going to end up somewhere reasonable, right?
That happened yesterday. We had a terrible day yesterday. Both Matt and I were feeling super down about just the situation of being in lockdown. We were all rubbing each other the wrong way, and there seemed to be no saving it. But at the end of the day, Olli just decided to dress up. He came out into the lounge in different dress ups, and it was hilarious. And we found joy at the very last part of our day, and it was just, we were all laughing, and we were just, the whole mood lifted. And he just cracked the code on that one of he was enjoying the dress up, and he enjoyed our reactions to him walking out in different costumes. And it was turn the day around from something terrible.
That is such a great example, right? And I think that's part of what we've learned as we've peeled back those layers, is being open for those moments. Even when we're down and things, we can't see where they're going. positively, but being open for those small shifts.
Yeah.
Right. To see and recognize those. And it's like, oh, it wasn't, oh, Olli, it's almost time for bed. Please don't start pulling out a bunch of different clothes or whatever it was that he was changing into. Right.
Yeah.
Trying to not keep that negative lens on things, like being more open to seeing those moments, like the joy in all the tiny little things, even if it's, a change of clothes or a smile about a video or whatever, and recognizing those, because so often we're certainly at the beginning, we're blind to those.
Oh yeah.
Right. Oh
yeah.
That was such a great example. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for speaking with me today. It was so much fun, Fiona.
Oh, thank you. It's been amazing. And thank you so much for your podcast and all your guests, because it really has been something I look forward to. I get the podcast every Friday I don't know what day you load it up, but it's Friday that I get to listen to it. And I look forward to my Friday morning, and I'm making the breakfast and the lunch, listening to Pam and her guest. And it energizes me, and has helped me learn so much. So thank you, Pam.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thanks so much, Fiona. And before we go, where can people connect with you online?
I'm on Facebook, but I don't use it that much. So Instagram would be the one. And my handle is at 5 foot, so 5FT biker. I'm a short biker, so that's why that is. And it's a private account, but just follow or whatever you do. And I'd love to meet new unschooling people, so that'll be cool.
Oh, that's awesome. I will definitely put the link to that in the show notes. Now, I know I'm waking up in the morning, but you're going to bed. So I say have a lovely sleep tonight, and I'll talk.
Thanks. Okay. Thanks, Pam. Bye-bye.